Hi everyone, let's talk about AEW Dynamite. So yes, guys, we opened the show with Hangman Adam Page with the AEW World Championship, and he thanks the fans, he thanks us, he thanks everybody and stuff, and he says it was you, it was the fans. He thanks Orange Cassidy, he thanks Adam Copeland, he thanks Shibata, he thanks Will Hobbs, he thanks Darby Allin, he thanks Brian Danielson, and even says thank you to Swerve Strickland. And that's what happened right there, guys, and stuff, which was great to start the show. Then we had Kyle Fletcher fences Misakura Dorora. It was a great match. It was a great match with Kyle Fletcher and Misakura. And Kyle Fletcher won with the Brainbuster. It was a great match. Loved it, guys. Really loved it, man. Then we had the Young Bucks are interviewed in a basement by Renee Paquette, and they issue her of joining this and being disrespectful and storms off and running into Maria Shafir, who refuses to talk to them. They're angry about how Finkel everyone is about everything, and they're done, and they run into a crew member who stretches EVPs out on their locker room door and writes Matt and Nick, which of course offends their further, and then Ricochet and Gates of Agony rolled up and made fun of them, and then Don Callis is here to sympathize with them and say that he had their differences, but they're the greatest tag team of all time and they can do business. And Matt says they'll never join the family, but they're happy to talk and they can do a group hug. And then we go to a break. Then back from the break, we get the Heart Syndicate footage from Saturday, and MVP says he loves to celebrate, but nobody has challenged them or given the titles from them, and it's getting boring, and everybody's being scared. And MGF speaks next, saying he has nothing to prove against Jon Moxley, but again, Hangman Page, he has something to prove. He needs to prove that he's better than Hanger, and he doesn't need to cash in as a surprise, and he can beat him clean in the middle of the ring. And then now Hanger is at peace now, but he is the sense immense of his distraction, and he can't wait to push him back over the edge into his own personal pits of despair, and he can be the men's main character of all he wants, and MG has to be the bad guy, and nice guys finish last, which was good. Then we had Bandito and Brody King and the Jet Speed fences the Don Callis family and the Young Bucks, which this was a good 8-man tag in my opinion. A lot of people said it wasn't, but it was good, guys. And the Don Callis family won, and the Don Callis family and the Young Bucks won by stoppage with a sleeper hold from Intercero and Bandito. They went back and forth. There was really good stuff, flying moves from Bandito and stuff like that, and the Brody King with the tackle, shoulder tackles and all of that cool stuff, and chomps and so on and so forth with chomps and stuff. And then the Young Bucks doing their kicks and stuff, and then they had to stop themselves with doing the EVP. They were like, do we do the EVP thing? You know what I'm saying, guys, with that whole thing and stuff and all of that and stuff. And that's how they won. The Don Callis family won with Inchicero doing a monkey flip into a super kick party and a sleep hold. And that's what happened right there. And then so as we go to the break, from the commercial break, Adam Copeland makes his entrance and gets on the mic. He admits that it's since that he thanks us and says our reactions are why he keeps getting up and coming out here. And there's a lot of questions after all in it. And did he come out to save Christian Cage? He said no. He's an ass. He's a big butthole and stuff. And then from the second he steps in foot in AEW, he made Adam Copeland's life miserable, which, that whole story back then, and promising to sense him in becoming the father to his daughters. And then he cost him his title against Jon Moxley at Revolution. You remember back at Revolution and stuff. And then he doesn't even blame, he says, I don't even blame the Penetree doing what they did to him. I really don't. He said, I don't blame the Nick Wayne and them and Mother Wayne, the whole thing. He said, I don't blame them. I really don't. I don't really blame them. So he says, I really don't blame them at all. So So yeah, he says I really don't blame him. And then then he doesn't blame Nick Wayne or Keith Sabian, like I said, for what they did at All In. And he told Christian since that was going to happen to him, and all he can hope is there's somewhere Christian Cage is pulling his giant freaking head out of his butt. But he wouldn't hold his breath, and no, he came to All In to get his hands on FTR 5 years ago, and he got cleared to step foot in a wrestling ring again, and he got his dream back. And FTR is where the first two people he called because he knew they could whip him back into shape, and he wouldn't pull any punches. And that's even talked when about winning the trios titles, even when he was working with WWE at the time, when he was working in WWE at the time. And then he came here and they did it, but within 2 weeks, they start complaining about being a since age heads in his shadow. But when he realized over the years is that since he blames anybody else before looking at themselves, they put him on the shelf for 4 months at a time, and he doesn't know if any given match will be his last, and so on and so forth. He talks about that, guys. And then then Stokely Halfway comes in with four security guards, and then one of them is from GCW's tag team champions. Violence is Forever, Kevin Fuchs, and he makes them get in the ring first and says FTR reads Adam Cole looks like a book, and they knew he came out here and blah 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 about how much he wants his revenge, and he got a series of questions that weapon at All In, and his called Spike. Right, well, Spike is essentially what much is essentially and stuff like that. And then Stokely Hathaway was saying, if you put your hands on FTR, you're fired. You are fired. If you put your hands on them, I talked to Tony Khan and all this and all that, and he says, you put your hands on FTR, you're fired. And then Adam Cole said, well, you said that I can't put my hands on you. And then then Stokely Hathaway run away and all that stuff. And all that. And then, then Mark Briscoe cuts a promo and says, if he walks like a duck, then he talks like a duck, he's a duck. And if he walks like a, what, and it talks like a what, and talks like a what. And MJF is like, duck and dodged him the whole Casino Gauntlet, and he only wanted to do two things in that match: whoop MJF's butt and get that title shot back. And MJF refuses to let either of them happen. But back in January of 2023, he made his AEW debut. It's since in the world a sense of those boys are about at All In, and Max and Bruce, since spot and that the other chaos since and calls it karma, and he and he will make MJF pay for his sins and stuff like that. Then we had Chris Dallenter fences Queen Malanata fences Tekla fences Willow Nightingale, which was a great match, back and forth, really hard hitting and all that stuff, and so on and so forth. And then Julia Hart came out and distracted in Sky Blue 2, and then Julia Hart spitted the green mist on Queen Malanata, and then Tekla pinned Queen Malanata in 1, 2, 3, and that's what happened. And then Chris Dallenter and Willow Nightingale fought in the crowd towards the match, like towards of the middle of the match. They went up top of the the entrance, and they fought it, and that's what happened. And then that's what happened right there, guys. And then back from the commercial, Tony Storms appears from the balcony for Loving Public and gets on the mic, and then talking about her victory over Mercedes Moné and all of that. And she says she was delicious and saying that stuff. And she says the announcement that Lutheran's injury is the line of duty, and she wouldn't dare the details behind, and it involves her since injury. And now her, are pointing to the future. And there are so many people with knives and wills. She's about to be careful. And now, because this is the one in this company, in this business, on this planet, that Athena and Billy Starks interrupt from the locker room, and Athena talks to herself up. Athena talks herself up and says Tony would be the side help of since no one cares to enamor because soon she will be your forever AEW Women's World Champion. And Mia Sarakawa is hurt because she stepped into her company and took her head off with one beautiful old face, and that means nobody's here to save Tony Storms when she decides to cinch her Casino Gauntlet title shot, and there's no more happy ending because her descent and her murder is right here and stuff. And then Tony says if she's sweating and she's willing, she's be trilling and she'd be able to bend her over the table because she's timeless. And then we had Keith Sabian, Nick Wayne, and Mother Wayne are backstage, talking about, what they did, and he said, and Nick Wayne says, "I'm the youngest wrestler, and I'm the youngest champ in the company, and all this good stuff, and all the good jazz, and all that great stuff, guys, and stuff." Then Don Callis gets on the mic and says he's been willing to the history of Great Okada as defeating Kenny Omega, at All In and all that stuff. Then Okada defeated Rafael Quintal or something like that. And Okada did the Rainmaker and won. It was a quick match. And then the post-match, Don Callis says Okada has something important to say, and he calls Swerve Strickland out, and he says he screwed his friend and the Young Bucks, so he calls them and then enters Swerve Strickland and looks and sends suit. And then he says the same thing back to him and stuff. And then we get into the ring and confront. He says that he did that, and this is Okada's going to do about it. What are you going to do about it? Like I said. And then Don Callis hold Rainmaker back and we'll see what happens with the Okada and Swerve thing, guys. Then Hangman Adam Page and Mark Briscoe and Will Hobbs faced the Death Riders, and Adam Page picked up the win by doing a rollover pin, with 1, 2, 3, and it was a good match, guys. With Hangman Adam Page and Mark Briscoe and Will Hobbs versus the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli and John Moxley and Wheeler Yuta and stuff, guys. They went back and forth for a while and stuff and all that, and then John Moxley with the spine buster and Wheeler Yuta with the running knee, and then Mark Briscoe with a froggy elbow, and then a bloodshot counter and a neutralizer counter. And then Adam Page and Mark Briscoe and Will Hobbs won by a pinfall with a jackknife pin from Adam Page on Claudio Castagnoli, and that's how he won with a jackknife pin. And then the post-match, the Death Riders jump at Hangman Adam Page and beat him down more. And then Darby Allin's in the rafters. We see Darby Allin in the rafters, and that's what happened, guys. And then they sent them packaging, and then it's enough of a distraction from Adam Page, and then fights the Death Riders off and sends them packaging. And that's what happened right there, guys. And I give this show an 8 out of 10, and I don't care what anybody says. It was a very good Dynamite, in my opinion. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe to this channel, and hit those notification bells. And that's all I have to say, guys. Peace out and take care, guys. Peace out and take care.